I'm just saying, I'm not doing that. Oh, we're live? Oh, man. Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Man, okay, my bad. I didn't know we were live. People got to tell me these things. Man, got to tell me, it's action. Killing me. All right. Yeah, anyway, I appreciate you guys stopping by. Yeah, I thought we were on like a commercial break or something, man. Just playing, man. But yes, appreciate everybody for stopping by very much. For all of my people in the Philippines, Maguindanao, Maga, Kamusta na, Mabuting Pagdati, Masaya Kong Makita King Muli, Maraming Salamat, Po sa Nananud. For anybody who is coming from Armenia or who does speak Armenian, Vok Juven to you, and merci for coming by and taking a look at my video real quick. I appreciate you guys very much. But I have the round 2 game for the Superbet Grand Chess Tour Classic between Wesley and Levon Aronian. If you guys are ready to go, let's take a look and see what we have for this game. Let me minimize that. I got that mess kind of big. Bam. All right, so we got D4, knight comes to F6. We got C4, E6, knight to F3, D5. So as you guys know, this position should look very familiar to you. I'm always saying there's so many different types of ways you can get to this exact position. And, of course, we have Catalans. We have just general Queen's Gambit decline. We have Queen's Gambit exchanges. We have just like, being super solid with E3, not committing the knight to C3 immediately. But we do see knight to C3. And then we have bishop to B4. And we have the Queen's Gambit decline. And this is the Ragozin defense. It has kind of like similar ideas of like Nimzo Indian. You might want to, trade here and kind of do a little bit to white structure. But, that's probably not going to be an issue because at some point white is going to trade here. And they're going to have a pretty nice structure still. So they're going to be good to go. We do see queen to A4. We have knight covering on C6. And we have E3. And so we got castles by black. Bishop to D2. Now we have the opportunity for white to be able to take back with the bishop instead of, damaging. Well, not necessarily damaging their structure, but just, being just maybe slightly more solid with taking with the bishop. And so we see pawn takes C4 and then we see bishop takes C4. And as you can see, white is a little bit further ahead than black is as far as their development is concerned. You see they only have one move needed to get their, their king into safety and to be completely 100% developed. Their queen is already out. So, I mean, like I said, to get their rooks connected just takes one move. Black, on the other hand, they need at least 2 moves. They need to get this queen moved somewhere, and this bishop has to get developed somewhere possible. So, it's not anything significant. It's not like black is losing, but, white definitely has a little bit of a lead. Anytime you can get a lead in development, well, not anytime you can get a lead in development, but a lot of the times when you get a lead in development, you usually are able to attack your opponent a little bit quicker than they're able to defend. But we do see bishop back to D6. We got queen over to C2, and we have E5. This is not really a premature opening of the position. As you can see, white is still in the center of the board. Their king is still in the center of the board, and black is already castled. So, it's a little bit less dangerous when you're when you're castled and stuff to start opening the position. We see pawn takes E5, knight takes E5, knight takes E5, bishop takes E5, and then we now see castles by black. And we don't really have any good discoveries at the moment, with this rook being lined up on the queen, because as you can see, the bishop doesn't really have anywhere to go. The only square to go to is back to E1. So it's not anything crazy at the moment. But black goes ahead and sidesteps that first, queen to E7. We have king to B1, which is usually a useful move when you do castle queenside, because, you are looking at, possible situations where, a queen or something like that could come and attack this A2 pawn. So the king is the one that defends it usually. We got bishop to E6, bishop takes E6, queen takes E6. We have F3. We have rook A to D8. And then we have reached the point in the game where if you want to go ahead and stop the video and see what is a good move here for white, go ahead and do so real quick. All right, cool. So it's not like a real thematic move. It's not like, you know, like a real tactical shot or anything. But it's just kind of like there's two reasons, you know, why I'm asking about this particular point in the game. And the first thing is something I always mention: restricting knights. You know, as you can see right now, this knight does have the ability to jump into d5. And then the other thing as well is this bishop is really kind of sad at the moment. You know, it's just kind of biting on this knight, biting on the pawn. It doesn't really have a lot of scope. So the really nice move in the position, the very positional move is actually e4. So if you guessed e4, congratulations, because you did notice that you know, you don't want really this knight coming into d5, and you also want to try to open your bishop up. So as you can see, this bishop has now a lot more scope just from that simple movement. So good positional you know, move guess. And then so we see rook to d7, and rook to d7 is now the novelty of the game. You know, this position has never been seen before. Rook to d6 has been seen before, but not rook to d7. There's not a whole lot of difference in the moves because basically your plan is to just double. But I mean, possibly knight to d6 was avoided because, you know, this bishop possibly has the ability to influence that square, which isn't anything major. But like I said, we saw knight to d7, rook to d7. We have bishop down to c1, rook f to d8, rook takes d7, queen takes d7. We have knight down to e2. We have c6 by black. We have bishop coming to e3. So that's just, you know, considerably a better square for the bishop to be on. You know, you have a lot of influence now. So, I mean, it makes a lot more sense to put it on e3. So we got bishop back to c7. You know, setting like a small little trap, maybe a couple people might fall for, you know, trying to take here. But you will see b6 coming, and that traps your bishop. So we don't want to do that. Actually, it might not trap the bishop now that I think about it. Let me see. If you take here, you got that. They have to move the bishop first so that you can attack. Maybe I guess you got rook over. So yeah, it probably does. Now that I think about it. I mean, it wouldn't be a pawn that I would grab. Let's just say that. So we got rook over to c1, bishop to b6. We got bishop to g5. You know, hoping for a possible, you know, trade here because then we damaged black structure a little bit. Queen comes to e6 to defend against that. We have queen to b3. We got h6, queen takes e6, pawn takes e6, and we have bishop to f4. You know, we are trying to preserve our bishop. And something that you guys notice kind of goes into what I said before. You know, we do see these pawns on light squares. So all it really takes is a b3 and an h3 movement. And we have secured a really nice structure for our bishop to move within. We see knight to h5. We got bishop to e5. We don't want to give that bishop up. Rook comes to d2. We see rook to c2. We got rook down to d1 with check. Rook comes to c1. We see rook to d2. Rook comes back to c2. Rook to d1 with check. Rook to c1. And then we see rook to d2. And it is in this position that the players agree to a draw. Well, they don't agree to a draw. They have a draw by threefold repetition. It's a little disappointing that we had a draw again. And we had some wins in the round today. But there is actually very good reason why white goes into this draw here. If black is pressing for the draw in this position, white really has no choice but to accept it. And I'll tell you exactly why. After we see rook to d2, there is also, like, to give you guys a side variation real quick, there is also, after rook to d2, there is also g4. It pretty much amounts to the same thing because after the knight comes to f6, you do see rook to c2, and then you got the shifting back and forth with the pieces. So, I mean, that's still dead zero. But after we got rook to d2, after we see rook to c2, and then we see rook to d1 with check, you absolutely do not want to cover this check with knight to c1 because you're going to be looking at bishop to e3. And as you guys can see, your pieces are very hemmed down. And you have to try to free yourself with maybe b4. I mean, b3 is possible as well. Pretty much is about the same thing. But then you'll be seeing knight to f4. And you have a really bad problem on your hands. Do you trade your bishop for this knight? Or do you try to escape with king to b2? The problem is if you escape with king to b2, you're really not escaping because there are two very deadly variations after this. Bishop takes on c1, rook would take on c1, and you either see knight to d3 with check, which is forking your king and your rook, or you see the slightly more accurate rook takes c1, And then, you know, you're pretty much forced to take back on C1, and then you see knight to D3, and that is forking your pieces, winning an entire piece. So that is not where you want to be at all. Neither one is really where you want to be. But that is what happens if you try to cover with knight to C1. It's just, you're basically just, instead of drawing, you're just going to be losing the game. And nobody wants to lose a game when you can draw it. And of course, nobody wants to, you know, nobody wants to draw the game when you can win it. So, I mean, that's the whole thing about it. But that is that game from round 2. And for all of my people in the Philippines, I'm saying it a little bit faster. I'm trying to get through these a little bit better. Let's see what I'm looking like. So, maanyong buntag, mayad na agahan, naibang na bigat, masantos ya kabasan, marhe na aga, buenos dias, maanyong aga, Mapian na uma, Kapian Capo nu Dios. This is where it gets tough. I know Mayap Abak is in there. I think that's that first. Yes. And then Mayad na Aga, Mapia Agay. And then I have the two that I just learned, Mapia Kapapita and My Big Bukla. So I think I have 15 of the 19 that I need. So I just got 4 more, but I'm doing pretty good. As you can see, I'm getting through the first probably like 7 or 8 a lot quicker. It's just like immediately in my mind or whatever. So that's looking pretty good. But merci to anybody who is coming from Armenia. Appreciate you guys very much for taking a look at my video, and I'll see y'all next time.